Lyra Vance's earliest memory was not of a room or a face, but of drifting, her small body coasting silently through the sun-washed interior of Habitat K7, one of 12 human microgravity colonies orbiting Procyon B. Children there were taught to push off walls with fingertips, rotate their bodies with minute wrist motions, and brace their legs only during occasional gravity hour sessions when the habitats spun up for bone density maintenance. Lyra was different from the others even then. Where most children flailed awkwardly or over-rotated, Lyra glided. She moved like a creature designed for a world without weight. At 6 years old, she could navigate maintenance tunnels meant for drones. At 8, she discovered she could anchor herself mid-air simply by shaping her limbs to catch airflow. At 10, her instructors declared she possessed non-Newtonian intuition, an instinctual understanding of motion that couldn't be taught. Engineers from the Allied Navy visited the colony periodically to test young zero-G natives for piloting or EVA, extravehicular activity, potential. They watched Lyra maneuver through a rotating obstacle cylinder, never touching the sides. She looked like a small ghost threading the void. "She doesn't move," one officer whispered. "She flows." When she turned 17, they offered her direct placement into the Allied Navy's engineering corps. She said yes without hesitation, not because she wanted rank or prestige, but because she wanted something she had never truly experienced. Gravity she didn't trust would fade away. Her first shock came during transit on the military cruiser Argentville. Artificial gravity pinned her to the floor like invisible chains. Her legs trembled, her spine protested, her heart pounded from the strain of suddenly carrying her own weight. The crew, a mix of species from normal gravity worlds, watched her struggle to stand. A Baroxian technician, easily twice her height and 4 times her mass, scoffed. "If you can't even walk, microling, you'll snap in the field." Lyra didn't reply. She simply clung to handrails, learning to walk the way a newborn calf might. Every second felt wrong. Up felt too solid. Down felt too real. She trained at night, crawling, standing, falling, standing again, burning her lungs in the heavy atmosphere. After a week, she could walk 10 meters without collapsing. After a month, she could jog, but she never moved naturally. Her gait was too soft, too balanced, too drifty, as the crew teased. She didn't swing her arms. She adjusted her hips to maintain 3D control even when stuck in 2D movement. When she transferred to the dreadnought Gorgath 7, things became even worse. The Gorgath were a species forged beneath 6 times the gravity of Earth, standing between 8 and 10 feet tall. They were encased in thick bone plates and muscle cords that could smash through steel beams. To them, humans were frail reeds. To a microgravity human like Lyra, a dust mote. Her new commanding officer, General Threxel, eyed her with visible disappointment. "You walk like your bones are made of jelly," he growled. A few officers laughed. Has she ever stood on a real planet? Will she float away if someone exhales? Lyra bowed. Floating species often did, since lowering oneself was hard under gravity. "Sir, I will adapt." Threxel snorted. "You'd better. This is a warship, not a nursery bubble." Her quarters had gravity panels that she could toggle low, medium, or high. Regulations required she keep it on at least 1G to maintain health standards. She kept it exactly there, but she never trusted it. She slept curled near the ceiling, hands pressed lightly against ventilation grates, in case gravity flickered and she drifted unexpectedly. The heavy gravitic crew whispered she was strange, not just weak, strange. She climbed walls using fingertip pressure. She worked upside down when she could. She tensed whenever the ship accelerated. When she reached for tools, she grabbed them as if the air itself might move them. The Gorgath mocked her softly. Ceiling lizard, weightless freak, microling. She endured it all silently, because she knew a truth they didn't. Gravity lies to you. It can vanish at a power failure. It can shift under combat maneuvers. It can kill you if you trust it too deeply. She wasn't weak. She was simply never fooled.
1 month into her deployment, the Gorgath 7 was assigned to patrol along the Procyon Outer Corridor, a region where ships had begun disappearing. Rumors spread of Vathic Marauders, void-born raiders who evolved in vacuum caverns on a moon without an atmosphere. They were blind, but possessed hypersensitive tremor detection, able to sense any mass that pressed on a surface, any footstep, any vibration. Heavy gravitic species like the Gorgath were easy targets, humans too, if they walked. The ship doubled security checks, armed their plasma cannons, and tightened patrol routes. Lira upgraded the ship's hull sensors to pick up micro-piercing events. She slept lightly, her instincts prickling. Something felt wrong. On the 12th day, alarms erupted through every corridor, then cut off mid-wail. Lights flickered, power dipped, grav plates shuddered. A moment later, boom! A breach charge punched through the portside hull. The Vathic had arrived. The corridor lights died completely, leaving only red emergency strips glowing faintly along the floor. Threxel's voice roared over internal comms before static consumed it. Lira felt gravity falter, flicker, then stabilize at 0.8 G. Wrong, very wrong. She crouched against the wall, slowing her breathing, listening. Tap, tap, tap. The Vathic did not stomp. They did not run. They touched. They tapped the floor lightly with specialized sensory limbs, listening to how the vibrations returned. They could map an entire ship through pressure waves, and they were triangulating targets. Heavy footfalls meant certain death. The Gorgath crew, giants who had never known silence, were suddenly paralyzed. Lira felt it, their panic trembling through the floor like thunder. The Vathic would follow that tremor straight to them. She whispered to her suit's system, mag boots off, calf stabilizers off. She reached upward with both hands, touched the ceiling, then pulled herself up, gently, silently, letting her body hang horizontally above the deck. She did not weigh enough to make a detectable tremor. For the first time since she'd left her childhood home, moving felt right. She drifted forward, using only fingertips to push off ceiling panels, staying above floor sensors. Below her, a squad of Gorgath security officers crouched, terrified to take a step. A single footfall could alert enemies from 3 corridors away. One officer whispered, "We're blind, trapped." Lira reached down from the ceiling and tapped his shoulder. The entire squad spun upward in shock. They hadn't heard her. She whispered, "Don't move. They're tracing weight. We can't even crawl. You don't have to." She drifted past them without a sound. For the first time, the crew saw her not as weak, but as something alien, something built for this. Lira accessed a maintenance hatch, pushed herself sideways, and entered the ventilation labyrinth, the only place where gravity mattered less. She rotated her body smoothly, aligning herself with a narrow shaft, pulling herself through with practiced ease. On her tactical display, life signs flickered. The Vathic had spread through the ship like mold, but she saw a pattern. They were moving toward the engine core. If they took it offline, the ship would lose all artificial gravity, killing the crew instantly as their bodies, evolved for crushing weight, failed catastrophically in freefall. A Vathic without gravity was like a human thrown into vacuum. Lira whispered to herself, "I won't let that happen." She reached the midship maintenance junction, where 4 corridors converged. Vathic silhouettes moved below, 4 of them, with curved limbs and pressure pads instead of feet. They clicked and tapped the floor like spiders reading Braille. They spoke in vibrations, short pulses detectable only through surfaces. Lira floated directly above them, perfectly still, listening. Click, tap, click, tap, tap. Translation came slowly, but she understood the cadence. Sector secure, move to next node. She scanned the room, power conduits, ventilation ducts, a coolant pipe, and one faulty grav panel she knew about because she'd repaired it last week. She remembered something her childhood instructors always said: a person who trusts gravity is predictable, a person who forgets it is unlimited. She pushed off a pipe gently, drifting across the ceiling.
From her belt, she pulled a magnetic bolt. She aimed, threw. Clink! The bolt adhered to the broken grav panel. The panel overloaded, flaring bright white, then blasted electromagnetic noise. The Vathic twisted in confusion, disoriented by the sudden tremor wash. Lira dropped silently from the ceiling like a falling feather, then hooked her legs around a conduit, swinging lightly. With her free hand, she grabbed a coolant valve and wrenched it open. A burst of freezing vapor engulfed the Vathic. Their sensory limbs recoiled, their pressure pads stiffened. She landed behind them, weightless for the final meter, and slammed an override panel that sealed the corridor bulkheads. The enemies were trapped on the other side, and she hadn't made a sound louder than a whisper. Her suit displayed dozens more hostiles. The Vathic were moving methodically, sweeping every corridor. She needed to reach the command deck, restore full comms, and warn Threxel. But the direct path was suicide. Every grav panel, every metal floor, every vibration would reveal her. Instead, she chose the one path no one else could use, the exterior support grid. She slipped into an EVA locker, sealed her microsuit, and ejected herself through a maintenance port into open space. The ship's outer hull stretched before her, massive, cold, and studded with protrusions. She magnetized her gloves only when absolutely necessary, not wanting the Vathic to detect magnetic ripples. Then she pushed off and drifted along the hull, orienting herself with tiny bursts of compressed gas. She moved like a specter waltzing across starlight. When she reached the command deck's dorsal hatch, she re-entered silently. The interior was chaos. Officers lay unconscious from shock grenades. Consoles burned with static. Gravity flickered at intervals, disorienting everyone. Lira floated to the central comm station, pried open the panel, and rerouted auxiliary power manually. Then she spoke into the emergency channel. "General Threxel, do you read?" His voice came faint but fierce. "Vance, where are you? We can't move. The floors will betray us." "Stay put. I'm clearing a path." Threxel muttered, half amazed, half angry. "How are you moving?" Lira allowed herself a tiny smile. "I forgot gravity a long time ago." The heart of the ship lay 10 decks below. The Vathic had nearly reached it. If they disabled the grav matrix, the crew would die within minutes, bones decalcifying, muscles tearing under sudden release, hearts unable to adapt. Lira navigated through vertical shafts, diagonal maintenance tubes, and zero-G junctions the crew rarely used. The ship was alive with danger. In one corridor, she found a Gorgath warrior slumped against the wall, trembling. He wasn't injured, he was terrified of moving. Lira drifted down and gently pushed his shoulder. "I'll draw them away from this sector. Don't step or crawl until I say." He looked up at her with awe. You make no sound at all." "That's the idea." Another junction, more Vathic. Lira drifted above them, holding her breath to reduce her mass vibration. They passed beneath her completely unawares. When she reached the final barrier before the engine core, her display lit up red. 8 hostiles. She needed a diversion. She unlatched 3 EMP beacons, armed them with staggered delays, and gently dropped them down the shaft. They descended silently. 1, 2, 3. Thrum, thrum, thrum. The Vathic convulsed in disorientation, their sensory nerves overloaded. Lira rocketed forward, grabbed a ceiling rail, swung above them, and slipped into the core chamber. Inside, she saw the real threat, a Vathic commander attaching a crystalline device to the grav matrix housing. Gravity destabilizer. A single pulse could flip the ship's gravity polarity, turning 6G species into liquid inside their own armor. She didn't think, she acted. She launched herself across the room, using her whole body as a silent missile. She collided with the Vathic commander from behind, using momentum instead of weight to knock it off balance. The creature hissed and swung blindly, but she was already drifting away, spinning gracefully. She grabbed a tool wrench, kicked off a bulkhead, and intercepted the creature mid-recovery, slamming the wrench into its sensory limbs. It screeched in vibration language, an alarm call, but Lira twirled upward and slammed the emergency purge switch. The doors sealed, an isolation field dropped. The Vathic were trapped inside with her. It lunged. She drifted sideways, twisting in air. It swung again. She spiraled downward, grabbing its weapon limb and using its own momentum to flip it. Gravity flickered, dropping to near zero. Perfect. Lira launched herself upward, tucked into a ball, then extended her legs to deliver a counterspin kick. The creature slammed into the far wall, stunned. She grabbed the destabilizer device, yanked. Sparks erupted. The grav matrix stabilized. Alarms ceased. She exhaled, exhausted but victorious. With the grav matrix safe, Lira restored internal comms. Threxel's voice boomed through the ship. All units, follow the human's route markers. She has created safe paths. Move carefully. The crew slowly advanced, using Lira's silently cleared corridors. One by one, they encircled the remaining Vathic and forced their retreat. When the last enemy was vented into space, the ship fell into a stunned silence. Threxel found Lira sitting cross-legged on a ceiling beam, breathing hard. He stared up at her. "You saved us all," he rumbled. "We mocked you, we doubted you, but in the dark, in the silence, you were the only one who could move." Lira floated down lightly, landing without sound. "I wasn't stronger. I wasn't faster. I just don't think in gravity." Threxel bowed, a gesture unheard of among Gorgath. "Human, you have taught us a truth. Weakness in one world becomes power in another."